this is Dee from CatalystEnergies. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is the Daily Catalyst Astrological Report for January 17th, 2020. And I decided to come on just as our moon is coming into Scorpio this morning here on the West Coast. And last night we had, just a few hours ago, we had the third quarter square of the moon to the sun as she was finishing up in Libra. So I want to start there today and talk about this crisis of consciousness when it comes to Libra and Capricorn, which naturally square each other. It's going to be an interesting day, I think, that with Mercury now in Aquarius, our minds and our mental activity, our thoughts and our communications are going to be very, very much stimulated to be free, to think outside the box a little bit, to be innovative and almost rebellious. And Aquarius is a fixed air energy. Now, Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, which is also an air sign, but it's mutable. It is able to shift into lots of different mental positions and look at all sides of a situation. Mercury entertains all of the ideas and doesn't really exclude any possibility in terms of mental activity. But with Aquarius, because it's so fixed, it's very much like a laser beam of focus. There is one train of thought, and it is very cosmic and has to do with the collective, and it's very much connected to a much larger perspective than with Gemini, which is taking in all of the perspectives and all of the opportunities and all of the options mentally and intellectually. So Mercury is going to have a very singular laser focus, but it's also going to want the freedom to think outside of the normal boundaries. So as the moon in Libra squared the sun with this crisis of consciousness, we see and probably feel the tension between wanting to have some balance, wanting everything to be aesthetically pleasing, to be geometrically symmetrical, to make sure that everybody's needs are being met, that the resources, regardless of what they are proportioned equally among everyone. We're really feeling this. We want this. We want everybody to get their needs met. We want everything to be balanced. We want the scales of justice to be balanced. And it's interesting because in, at least in the United States, I can't really speak for any other country's justice system, but our symbol of justice is a woman who is blindfolded. And that does represent the fact that our system of justice does not really consider people in terms of their unique personalities, their race, their gender, their orientation, their ethnicity, any of these aspects that feed into what makes us each a unique individual, the combination of all of these things. It's really about that we all deserve for things to be balanced and just, regardless of how we present ourselves and what our circumstances are. And so we've really been feeling that pull. And to square Capricorn, especially in the third decan, the last 10 degrees of Capricorn is very much about power. It's very much about the security necessary to maintain that power in a very material way. And so the square comes, and we have this crisis of consciousness when it comes to the idea that it is a nice idea, it is a admirable idea. We want things to be just and fair. But with the sun in this last decan of Capricorn, it's really putting us to the test of, okay, that's a great idea. And of course, we're being drawn to that. That's how we're feeling. But do we want the benefits of a free society where everything is equal, or the security that comes along with having to maintain the material resources of a community? Because the Sabian symbol for the sun today is a large aviary, and it's meant to represent a community. But if you know what an aviary is, it is an enclosure for birds. And so there's this idea that it is necessary in order to create this stability and this community, that there has to be a restriction in some ways, a material, structural restriction. And that's where we're getting into the real mastery of Capricorn, and where it starts to kind of fall apart and then move into Aquarius, because there is this mastery, there is a structural need to contain this community, but it is in a very tense aspect to where we're feeling and what we're instinctually driven to find this balance, and that everybody is getting the equal proportion. And sometimes that's not necessarily possible when you are trying to contain a structure or a large institution to create a community. So we're really putting, we've really been brought to this place to consider where we actually want to be and where we in fact are, with the sun in this last decan of Capricorn. And so this is really where the crisis is and has been for us. And it happened early in the morning on the West Coast, and also in the East Coast early in the morning. Of course, more in the later morning into the afternoon in Europe and further east. But it's really been bringing us to a place to see what is and where we feel we want to go. And you can really see that playing out over and over again, especially with Saturn and Pluto conjuncting, and the sun lighting up all those points very recently. The idea that in order to maintain some sort of community, there needs to be a strong structure that doesn't necessarily consider the freedom or the equal apportionment of resources to everybody, because those resources need to go towards building this community, building this structure. And I mean, disappointments abound. So what's interesting about this is we've had this crisis in consciousness, and then the moon moves into Scorpio now. And so she's gone from this place of really feeling a drive, our collective inner drive, instinctual drive to have balance. And now we're moving into the place where we're starting to dive deep. We're starting to be investigative. We're starting to look at the deeper realms, the subconscious. And it's really about the power dynamics that are part of being in an equal partnership, is what Scorpio is really all about. The realization that when you enter into relationship, which is what Libra is, a balanced relationship, that there is in fact power that exists, and it's inherent. It is part of the nature of duality, that there is energy that is exchanged. And this is resources, this is financial resources, material resources, energetic resources. Trust and intimacy are also part of that, which is why Scorpio is very much about passion, sexuality, intimacy. And so we're now feeling driven to discover, especially with the crisis of consciousness with the third quarter square, we're now driven to dive deeper. And the moon is in fall in Scorpio. The moon is at home in Cancer, which is a container. It's the vessel. And the moon represents this high priestess, sacred, divine, feminine. She wants containment. She wants a vessel to fill in order to feel supported and secure internally. And so when we get into Scorpio with the moon, she has no containment. She just can potentially sink to the bottom, which can be, which can take it, which is why that she's not in full power, because she can just really sink into the depths and kind of get lost there and potentially just like drown in the water and not be able to see her way out. This is very intense emotions, passionate emotions, potentially obsessive emotions when it comes to our relationship with others. So this is going to be kind of the flavor today, when the moon in Aquarius is naturally squaring, or the moon in Scorpio is naturally squaring Mercury in Aquarius, both fixed signs. One is air, one is water. So one is about the laser beam focus that's innovative and outside the box and demanding freedom in order to connect to this like higher consciousness. And Scorpio, which is going into the depths, where there is no, it's all emotional and it's all intuitive and it's deep and subconscious. It has nothing really to do with what's going on in the mind. And you can really feel this square. And both of these aspects, you can even see it right here, this red line squaring over to Mercury in Aquarius. Now, both of these energies are going to be making subtle, challenging aspects to Neptune and Pisces today, kind of one right after the other. And so, you know, the fog is thick with Neptune. There's no, it's all watery and it's all boundaryless, and, you know, light doesn't reflect accurately in the water. And, you know, Mercury is not necessarily moving through the water very easily. You know, you can't really shine a laser through the water and have it go straight to the source. You know, it's reflected and refracted in the water. And so we might be feeling drawn to this laser beam focus, you know, like really tapping into the collective consciousness with our mind and our intellect and our communication. But between Neptune and also the moon having a sesquisquare with Neptune here, which is more of like a very subtle square, might have to do with past life stuff. There's no real light that can clear up the fog. And we also could really drown in this with the moon in Scorpio, because she has no containment. She's just kind of sinking into the depths. And it's all water with Neptune and Pisces. It's really easy to get lost in both of these aspects today. Now, and then the square will happen between the moon and Mercury, kind of amplifying this in some way. It's going to be really important not to get lost here. And we have been lost here for quite a while. Neptune and Pisces has been here for a long time and will continue to be here. It's only halfway through Pisces, so it's not going anywhere. This illusion or delusion or dissolution, you know, into the source. So the moon also today is going to quincunx Chiron in Aries, and is also going to oppose Uranus in Taurus. So, of course, Chiron and Aries, our collective wounding, original wounding of our inner child, obviously is not really lining up very well with the moon that's going into the depths of trying to understand the nature of the shared resources in any relationship, how we show up in a relationship, and how we interact with the power. You know, are we inspiring trust in our relationships by the way that we utilize resources and share resources, or are we violating that trust? I mean, are we responsible for the intimacy, or are we manipulating people? And the moon is giving us an opportunity to like look at ourselves and investigate ourselves. And so a Chiron and Aries, that inner child that really needs to be acknowledged and validated, is definitely not, there is no lineup here whatsoever. These are completely different types of energies. You know, Chiron and Aries is, you know, our inner child is not thinking about how we show up in relationship and how our actions influence others and the shared resources, regardless of what those resources are. And so you can see that there is a need for an adjustment here, because these two aspects do not line up at all. And then the moon opposing Uranus, which I think is interesting, because Aries is about the unique personality, who we are. And then Taurus is about all of the physical resources we have at our disposal to, you know, to line up and to, you know, inspire that unique personality. How do we create from there? And if, you know, the moon is not necessarily lining up here with Chiron and Aries, and it's opposing Uranus. And so it's stimulating a push for a freedom and innovation when it comes to our physical, especially now that Uranus is moving direct, with our physical resources, what we have at our disposal to create something, you know, our bodies, our physical lifestyle, our money, you know, our practice, our whatever that is, it's what we have to really create with. And the moon, she's really putting our feet to the fire right now, in terms of, you know, this, again, Taurus is about what we have. What are we going to use? What is at our disposal? And Uranus is really pushing forward and is very much about the third eye and the collective third eye. But again, we're being drawn into how do we feel about this? How do we feel about our relationship with each other? How do we feel about ourselves in a deeper level? And so this opposition, you know, we just want to like move forward. We want to move forward. We want to innovate with what we have. We want to create something that is not just for us, but the moon, again, she's really drawing us back to like looking at ourselves very deeply, where our disappointments may be, excuse me, where we've interacted in a way that's maybe not in our highest light. And again, getting lost here. She could really drown here. So Mercury, however, is going to then come around and sextile, have a, you can see here, a 60-degree angle with Chiron today as well. And I think this is in the afternoon into the evening, depending on where you are. And this is, I think, is going to be where things really turn around for us, because Mercury is going to allow some insight about this inner child and stimulate a new way to look at our relationship to our collective Chiron wound, because Aquarius is aloof and detached in some ways, but it's because Aquarius is connected to everything and everyone, and it's not about transmuting like individual energy or emotions. And so we can get a really clear perspective on how to resolve this collective wound for ourselves. You know, Mercury in Aquarius is science. It's balanced mental perspective that is very focused on one trajectory. And I think this can really help later today, like resolve what, you know, this quincunx here between the moon and Chiron. And then the day is going to end with this really nice trine from the moon to here, Venus in Pisces as well. And this, to me, feels like our life raft in the ocean. You know, the moon has been kind of pulling us down into the depths, you know, into these dark places, these dark corners, investigating, getting really deep into ourselves, potentially obsessive about like what's been going on. And Venus in Pisces can really save us from ourselves. She's like the life raft. So we can come back up, we can get on this life raft in the ocean, because Venus is about physical materialization of what we love, of what is harmonious, what is beautiful to us. And she's showing us this potential for love and compassion and inspiration as well. She's our muse right now, and she really, I think, is going to save us from ourselves, because we could really get sucked into this place. And, you know, the moon is going to be in Scorpio all day tomorrow, and that's going to be a whole different set of aspects. But from what I can tell, other than the opposition to Vesta, which is also in Taurus, the moon is going to be making some harmonious aspects to the nodes and to Jupiter and to Neptune as well. And so I think after today, we're going to be inspired by the end of today to really create those harmonious, spiritually based relationships and projects and whatever in our physical life that we want to create. And then as the moon gets deeper into Scorpio tomorrow, she is going to take that inspiration and be willing to dive even deeper to see where we can improve, where we can, you know, take care of each other and be worthy of the trust and intimacy within a collective relationship. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for subscribing if you're watching this on YouTube, and thank you for subscribing if you've been inspired to subscribe based on this video. If you're watching on Facebook, thank you for joining me here. You can book all of my services right now through my Facebook page. There is a convenient book now button that allows you to book a time slot, and we can do a consultation. I have a variety of services available right now that accommodate a number of financial situations. So, you know, you can still reach out and we can still interact with each other, and it doesn't have to be super expensive if that's not something that you can budget right now. I want to make this work accessible to people and not make it only accessible to people that seem to be financially capable right at the moment, because that's just not how I roll personally. So I hope you're doing well. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you on the next video. See you later. Bye.